Next on the news, more busloads of migrants arrive in New York City amid new details out of Texas about how many died just trying to cross the border. Boston Children's Hospital, the first in the nation with a youth gender surgery center. But we speak with a plastic surgeon who says it's not a way to save a life.
Essentially what these surgeries are is an act of domination over the body.
And it's off. The Russian Orthodox patriarch not traveling to Kazakhstan to meet with Pope Francis. Plus, how one Boy Scout used his Eagle Scout project to brighten the lives of seniors in a big way. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. New York City has welcomed several new groups of migrants that were bused from Texas, but they are the lucky ones who have actually made it to the U.S. There are new details about just how many migrants die just trying to cross the border.
Quiero ofrecerle algo mejor a mi mamá.
Gabriella gets emotional when talking about her mother and leaving her home in Venezuela, but she says she left danger behind.
Because she lives on the border, so there are so many army groups that definitely, threat the farmers around. So there is a lot of violence, abuse.
Sometimes the journey to cross the southern border is just as dangerous.
It was very, very difficult to cross, and all the experiences that she's had. Natural phenomenon, weather, psychological, mental stress.
They are just two of the thousands of migrants who have arrived in New York City by bus from Texas since May. In just the past couple of days, 6 buses filled with migrants have pulled into Port Authority. The bus ride was the easy part. In fact, the Webb County medical examiner says this year is on pace to be the deadliest year for migrants crossing into this region of Texas in recent memory.
I'm seeing an extreme increase in the number of border crossing deaths compared to other years.
So much so, Dr. Stern says her office is at capacity. She says the majority of the 260 deceased migrants in her morgue died this year from drowning or hypothermia and are pending identification.
There's a barbed wire fence all around.
Despite the dangers, the arrival of migrants is not stopping, and neither are the deaths. Stern has this message for anyone thinking about crossing the border.
Politics aside, all these deaths are ruled an accident. An accident by definition is preventable 100%. Stay home.
Over in Maverick County, one of the deadliest areas in Texas, according to Dr. Stern, a funeral home there says they're at capacity too. And with the medical examiner not taking the deceased, they are now burying unidentified migrants. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of New York is helping the bused migrants in any way possible, including providing for the young travelers who will soon have to start school in a whole new country. The charity's refugee resettlement team is holding a back-to-school drive, which will help students from Ecuador, Guatemala, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and other countries across the world. To donate to the drive, just go to their Twitter page at CathCharitiesNY. A link to the wish list will be available there. But that's not the only assistance the Archdiocese of New York is providing. Cardinal Timothy Dolan said earlier this month that they're also preparing to welcome many of the migrant children into Catholic schools.
We have scholarships available for these kids to go to our Catholic schools. And Mick Deegan, who's the superintendent of our Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of New York, has told me the same thing.
The Archdiocese has also provided scholarships to many children of Haitian, Ukrainian, and Afghan refugees. There's little to ease the pain for the victims' families in Uvalde, Texas, after the school board voted to fire the district's police chief. The decision comes after sharp criticism about how authorities responded to the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School. As Amy Kiley reports, there's now calls to hold them accountable.
I have messages for Pete Arredondo and all the law enforcement that were there that day. Turn in your badge and step down.
She's getting part of what she wants. The Uvalde School Board fired District Police Chief Pete Arredondo last night. Some parents were angry the discussion before the vote was behind closed doors.
Our babies are dead, our teachers are dead, our parents are dead. The least y'all can do is show us the respect to do this in the public.
Others have expressed frustration. It took 3 months to fire the chief.
If it was one of your children, heads would be rolling right now.
But attendees applauded the final outcome. A statement from Arredondo's attorney says he didn't feel safe attending the hearing. It alleges he was terminated without cause and mentions potential recovery of monetary damages.
He is absolutely responsible, but so is every other cop that was in that hallway.
Others are demanding accountability from other law enforcement agencies on scene during the shooting. High on that list is the Texas Department of Public Safety and its director, Stephen McCraw.
Here we have a governor who the Department of Public Safety direct reports to, who's failed to ask accountability from one of his own agency heads.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Turning now to the Vatican, a highly anticipated meeting between Pope Francis and the head of the Russian Orthodox Church has been canceled. The two leaders were expected to meet with each other next month while attending an interfaith meeting in Kazakhstan. Instead, Patriarch Kirill will send a delegate in his place. This would have been the second ever in-person encounter between the two. The first was in Cuba back in 2016. Another meeting had been planned for June, but it was postponed over the diplomatic fallout of Russia's war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy has made his way to Rome. Pope Francis will elevate Bishop McElroy and 19 others to the College of Cardinals on Saturday. Justin McClellan caught up with the Cardinal designate when he landed in the Eternal City, and he asked him about his expectations on the promotion.
They're known as the princes of the church. Cardinals come from every corner of the world to help the Pope guide the world's 1.3 billion Catholics, and most importantly, elect his successor. Among the 20 cardinals most recently named by Pope Francis, only one comes from the United States, Bishop Robert McElroy of San Diego. He says his nomination is a chance to bring the American Catholic community closer to the global church.
We in the United States tend to be very focused on the United States. We in our own diocese tend to be focused on our own diocese. And one of the contributions which in the role of cardinals we can make is to point with some constancy to that idea that we are part of a universal community of faith and we're part of a universal human family.
A native of San Francisco, McElroy became Bishop of San Diego in 2015, where he has attempted to apply the focus of Pope Francis's pontificate on caring for migrants and the environment into his own community.
We as a community of faith in San Diego have tried to sow some of the seeds of the renewal that he talks about and has tried to move the church toward the idea of missionary discipleship.
Pope Francis has said that he would consider stepping down from the papacy if he felt unable to govern the church. In that case, Cardinal-designate McElroy will be one of the electors who select the next pope. He says that whoever fills Pope Francis's shoes should aim to more fully implement his efforts to build a more inclusive church, attentive to the needs of the forgotten.
I hope that will be many years down the road, but it'll still be important to try to bring those currents more fully into the life of the church at all levels.
That was Justin McClellan reporting. Bishop McElroy will become one of only 16 Americans in the College of Cardinals. So, you know, his Diocese of San Diego will be watching the consistory live. To join them, just go to their website, sdcatholic.org. That will happen on Saturday, August 27th, beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. There's a lot more news headed your way. Boston Children's Hospital is the first in the U.S. to offer a youth gender surgery center. But one plastic surgeon says this is not the way to save a life. We'll speak with him next. Rent rising to yet another record level in the U.S. So what's driving the increase? And Los Angeles looking to help its homeless population by allowing them to stay in hotels.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
One of the nation's best hospitals, Boston Children's Hospital, is now the first major pediatric hospital in the country to establish a gender surgery center. According to their website, the center currently offers vaginoplasty, metoidioplasty, phalloplasty, chest reconstruction, breast augmentation, facial harmonization, and other gender affirmation surgeries to eligible patients. All genital surgeries are only performed on patients 18 and up, but patients who want to pursue other surgeries could be as young as 15 if they meet eligibility requirements. To talk more about this, we are joined by Dr. Patrick Lappert, a plastic surgeon and member of the Catholic Medical Association, who's also a deacon in the Diocese of Birmingham. Doctor, nice to have you here.
Pleasure to be here with you.
So, Dr. Lappert, you can't just walk into this hospital and undergo one of those surgeries. There are several requirements, including letters from your doctor and your therapist, and you have to have been living full-time in your identified gender for at least 12 months. Even so, is 15 or even 18 old enough to make a decision like this?
Well, first of all, what's interesting about those ages of 15 and 18 is that Boston Children has already walked it back. When they initially announced this new transgender surgical services for children, they initially said that they would offer genital surgery like vaginoplasty, phalloplasty, those sorts of things, to 17-year-olds, and they also placed the chest surgery at a younger age than 15. It was 13, as I understand it. What is required to get referral for endocrine treatments or surgical treatments is a letter from a paraprofessional, a licensed social worker, a psychologist perhaps. And there's no test that any of those surgeons is going to offer the family that's going to prove or disprove that their child is a good candidate for the surgery. It's strictly a matter of opinion by the letter writer. And so it sounds like a lot of science going on here, but there really isn't a lot of science going on here.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church talks about sexual identity. It says, by creating the human being, man and woman, God gives personal dignity equally to the one and the other. Each of them, man and woman, should acknowledge and accept his sexual identity. So are these surgeries in line with the Church's teaching?
Not at all, because essentially what these surgeries are is an act of domination over the body and treating the body as if it's something separate from the person. You'll often hear the proponents of these interventions saying things like, the child felt as though they were born in the wrong body. So that's contrary to Catholic anthropology. We understand that the human person is a single nature. Body and soul together comprise the human nature, which is a singularity. Regardless of what you're proposing is wrong with the child, even if you're proposing that it could be corrected surgically, it would not be justifiable. And the claim that they make is that it's life-saving surgery is not supported by the evidence. There's nothing about this surgery that prevents suicide, prevents major depression, anxiety disorders, or any of the rest of it. It's strictly a cosmetic operation aimed at improving a subjective condition, which is never addressed.
Well, there is something on the hospital's website. It says it does support its patients' well-being. And it says, we are here to affirm, uplift, and advocate for transgender and gender diverse youth, and we remain committed to doing all we can to support their care and well-being. As a plastic surgeon, don't you see that in your line of work, patients looking to improve their well-being through surgery?
Oh, I'm all about that. That's what I do. Reconstructive surgery, trauma, even cosmetic surgery improves well-being. Unfortunately, these surgeries that they are offering, as well as the medical interventions like puberty blocking and cross-sex hormones, have not been demonstrated in quality scientific evidence to be of any benefit to the child. They have the lowest grade of evidence to support these interventions, what we call level 4 and level 5 evidence. Not the kind of evidence that you make recommendations for things like irreversible surgery.
So I had a question. You mentioned this. Are these surgeries reversible? And if not, what are some possible complications from them?
Some of the surgeries are reversible. Some of the facial surgeries, one of the breast operations is reversible. Mastectomy on a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl is not reversible. All genital surgeries that are being offered are irreversible. What kind of complications can you have? Well, you will have lifetime sterility. You will have lifetime dependence on the medical system. You have all of the complications that attend large doses of sex hormones, including risk of heart disease, risk of what's called metabolic syndrome, diabetes. In fact, the puberty blockade now has a new warning that it has a significant risk of increasing pressure in the brain and causing blindness.
So what are some alternatives to these surgeries?
At the top of the list of things the child needs is family therapy, a look into what could possibly be going on in that child's life that perhaps they're misinterpreting. Cognitive behavioral therapy, proven benefit there. Historically, children with gender identity issues resolve them sometime in adolescence to young adulthood. Nearly 92% of people stop thinking in this cross-sex self-identification if you do the old-style treatment of watchful waiting, cognitive behavioral therapy, family therapy.
Deacon Patrick Lapper, plastic surgeon and member of the Catholic Medical Association, thanks so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It is important to note that a federal court ruled just last week that gender dysphoria is covered by disability law. But for more information on the church's teaching on gender theory and for a list of resources, go to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops website, usccb.org. Meanwhile, rising rents hit a new record yet again in July.
Yeah, I pay it every month. I don't pay it on time. I pay it when I get it.
For the 17th month in a row, the national median rent hit a new record high, $1,879 a month. According to Realtor.com, that's up more than 12% from the same time a year ago. The South and Northeast have seen large increases, with Miami renters getting hit the hardest, followed closely by New York and Boston. But it's not just rents on the rise. Increasing housing prices and mortgage rates have led to a drop in new home sales.
We don't have enough homes in this country, so people are scrambling to find open apartments. Apartment rents are going up, and it's just really difficult for anybody who's trying to make ends meet.
In New York City, Manhattan and Brooklyn have seen the biggest jumps in rent. According to the real estate company Douglas Elliman, the average rental price in Manhattan for July was more than $5,000 a month, and in Brooklyn, it was just over $3,800. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 500,000 people in the country are experiencing homelessness on any given night. The city with the highest population, New York City, with more than 77,000 homeless. Right after that is the city of Angels. But Los Angeles is considering a new solution to help their homeless, setting them up in vacant hotel rooms. As Nick Watt reports, the proposal comes with some serious debate.
In Los Angeles County, more than 60,000 people are homeless on the average night. And more than 20,000 hotel rooms lie empty on the average night. See where this might be going?
It's insane. It isn't going to solve the problem.
We think this is one part of the solution. By no means do we think this solves the homelessness crisis. But do hotels have a role to play? Of course they do.
So the union he leads, which reps hotel workers, gathered enough signatures, and Angelinos will vote on a bill that would force every hotel in town to report vacancies at 2 p.m. every day, then welcome homeless people into those vacant rooms.
Honestly, would you check into a hotel knowing that the chance of your neighbor to the left or right is a homeless individual?
Manoj Patel voluntarily rents some rooms to homeless people who are vetted and paid for by a local church, but he's against this bill that would make that mandatory. What services would be provided remains unclear. Also unclear the funding, and hotels would be paid fair market rate.
It's up to the city. I mean, they did it during Project Room Key.
The pandemic-era program now winding down that inspired this bill by placing more than 10,000 people in hotels that volunteered. Sean Pigdelli among them.
Well, first of all, it's a blessing. It's a great room. The technology is not up to par, but, you know, what technologies do you have in a tent?
This bill would also force developers to replace housing demolished to make way for new hotels, and hotel permits would be introduced, as well as making every hotel from a Super 8 to the Biltmore accept homeless people as guests.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Why not?
Maybe for some, but you know, there's a lot of people with untreated mental health, and some people do some damage to these poor buildings, man.
That was Nick Watt reporting. Some opponents say the union is pushing this bill as a negotiating tactic for leverage. But the union says it just wants to make sure the hotels play a role in tackling a growing problem in Los Angeles. Still to come on Currents News, it's being considered an epic discovery. Next, what was uncovered on the shore of the Sea of Galilee and how it's tied to St. Peter. And how a Boy Scout decided to change the lives of seniors for the better before he was promoted to Eagle Scout. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. It's a discovery of biblical proportions. Earlier this month, a team of archaeologists uncovered evidence that may confirm the location of St. Peter's house. While excavating the ruins of an ancient Byzantine church along the Sea of Galilee in Israel, the team discovered a large Greek mosaic with an inscription calling for the intercession of St. Peter. The location of the dig site corresponds with the account of an 8th century Bavarian bishop who described the church as the House of St. Peter in Bethsaida. A Boy Scout in Kentucky is on a mission to help senior citizens, and he did so with his Eagle Scout project. Evan Leake shows us what he created for them to sharpen their minds.
Can you unlock that? You got yours locked, Donnie?
Unlocking entertainment.
Can you twist it? There you go.
Tightly fastening their focus.
We want to keep them, not just their bodies active, but their minds as well.
A task these busy boards complete tenfold for residents at Dominican Senior Living.
Sometimes they don't know what to do, so these boards just laying around in different areas, it kind of engages them.
Simply pieces of wood, adorned with engaging challenges, testing and sharpening the residents' dexterity and cognitive skills. The mind behind these busy boards? Curtis Relich, a proud member of Boy Scouts Troop 73. The boards were born out of Curtis needing to find a project to help him rise to Eagle Scout rank, and his first thought was to help the senior community.
I knew I wanted to help them out because there's a disconnect, and often they're just not as really thought about, and I don't really like that. So I wanted to do something that would help that community.
So Curtis reached out to leaders at Dominion, and the idea of the busy boards took shape, and maybe bring back a few memories of when they lived on their own.
Anything they could do, I could give them to remind them of kind of like the house. So there'll be a lot of door locks and other things on those. I like the latch, the door latches and things. Watching them use them, and that's something I really liked. So I was really happy that worked out.
These boards go beyond a little bit of fun or even the health benefits. They're building a connection, just like Curtis wanted, forming a bridge between young and old.
It's such a comforting feeling knowing that our younger generation is thinking about not just other people, but our older generation, to give back to that generation, to let them know that they're still, they're not forgotten about.
It makes me so happy, like to be able to help these people like this, because it's what I like a year ago was thinking about doing, and everything's like played out really awesome.
Everything clicking into place to keep these seniors pretty busy, far from bored, and never forgotten.
What a great idea. That was Evan Leake reporting. The memory boards were all handcrafted by Curtis and the rest of Troop 73. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.